You're listening to 98.3 FM, WRLR LP, Round Lake Heights, Illinois.
Welcome to the Dave Mierswa Show, the cutting-edge talk show about legal, political, and current issues. Practicing in both Wisconsin and Illinois, David Mierswa is a leading trial attorney bringing nearly 2 decades of business law, family law, personal injury, and estate planning experience to you. The Dave Mierswa Show, about the people, for the people, and bringing justice to the people. The Dave Mierswa Show, its guests, agents, and WRLR are not rendering any legal advice. All listeners are encouraged to seek legal advice from properly licensed and qualified professionals.
This is about 15 minutes ago, bodies started dropping from the top floors of the tower closest to the highway, about at least 5 or 6, and it was absolutely terrible. Obviously, they had 2 choices: to be burned in flames or to leap and end it all.
This is as close as we can get to the base of the World Trade Center. You can see the 2 towers. Debris continues to fall and to rain on the people below. There are people hanging from the windows 90 stories up, and a number of bodies have actually hit the pavement.
I think that there's some really crazy people in this world. This is just not too many innocent people. People are jumping off the building, body parts all over the place. I mean, this is just, I feel like I was in a movie.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
Absolutely not. I've seen at least 10 people fall to their death and just splat like a ripe tomato. It's awful, but it's, I don't know who was at the controls or what was going on in the plane, but it was not a bomb. It was an American Airlines jet that crashed into the tower.
Pray that God took them quick. And then we saw the people jumping. We thought it was debris, and we realized it was people jumping.
Welcome to the Dave Mierswa Show. I am your host, Dave Mierswa, and I want to welcome all the listeners here on WLR and online. And
This is Peggy Busceni, and I'm his co-host, Dave's co-host. And welcome to the September 11th, 2016 show.
the anniversary of 9/11.
Yes.
We just played an audio here, and I wanted to start the show. A lot of shows want to just get into the anniversary and the commemorative, but I want to hit this moment of the terror attack, and a lot of people forget the viciousness of what a few people with hatred can do. And I think that kind of hits the chord. I remember 9/11, and Peggy, what were you doing on 9/11?
It's funny you should ask. I know, that question looms when there's things very serious of nature like this happen, like where John F. Kennedy was shot, et cetera, et cetera. It's so strange. On 9/11, I took my older daughter to kindergarten, and my younger daughter was with me, and it was a Tuesday morning, and that was my morning to bowl. I wasn't working at the time, and so my children were in school, and I was bowling. And it was the weirdest thing, because all of a sudden, nobody showed up to bowl. The televisions were on at the bowling alley. I had one child with me and one at school, and I was like amazed that all this was happening. And the funny thing is, I wasn't scared for 1 second. I know some people were just saying, oh my God, we're gonna get bombed, it's war, it's this. I'm like, I know that, you know, the planes are getting into our buildings or invading our airspace, et cetera, but I never had any worry, because I thought, you know, Bush is in office, he'll take care of whatever needs to be taken care of, so I thought if I panic, then my kids will panic, so I remained at the bowling alley, because there was nowhere to go, and left my child in school. Now, several of the moms that I bowled with, they went and grabbed their kids out of school, and I said, don't do that, because that'll cause a panic, and then everyone's gonna be racing to and from schools and things like that. And that was even before we had lockdown procedures, things of that nature, so the school, they kept them in a safe place. So they, you know, took care of all that, so we didn't have to worry about it, but wow, what a morning, shocking, just shocking.
Yeah, you know, it really hits home for me, because on 9/11, on 2001, I got up and I was practicing law for about, must be about 3 years or so, and I was just getting the firm off the ground, and I was just getting up, and my anniversary, you know, for all the listeners out there, is today. And I got married in 1999, and we just bought a house, and I remember just waking up, and you know, we're just married 2 to 3 years, so I'm still enthusiastic about my marriage, but
Still a newlywed.
yeah, you know, but at that point, I remember I was watching the TV, and then the first plane hit, and then I knew it was attack, and then was several hours later, and then the second plane hit. I remember I was glued to the set for like 4 days.
Yeah.
You know, and I ate out of starvation.
Sure.
And I watch CNN News, and you know, and I was glued to, you know, every fact. And then the most sobering moment, one of them in my life, was when the towers went down.
Yes, that was
And
just, yeah, that was one of the things that,
yeah.
you know, I've never seen them in person, but they, you know, just a great sight, and then to have all of that just fall to pieces within, I think they said it took an hour to get all of it down. I mean,
Well, the whole thing collapsed in seconds.
well, yeah, but I mean,
But yeah, the burning,
Yeah.
and it went on for, you know, almost like a couple of hours.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you know, and one of the things that I remember were the jumpers. And they weren't showing that, but there were a few clips, and then they stopped showing the jumpers. There was
Yes.
over like 200 to 300 of them. And but anyway, I just want to take a moment of silence here on the radio show to pay our respect to everyone at 9/11, because I know it's an emotional day for everyone. And so we're just going to have a moment of silence here for all the first responders, the victims' families, and so forth, just to remember everyone. Kind of a moment of silence there kind of gets to you.
Yeah, it brings things into perspective. It sort of gives you time to reassess things, even if it's only for a minute.
And, you know, one of the other things I remember coming out of 9/11, Peggy, was with all the division today
Yes.
that's going on politically.
Yes.
At that moment, you know, we weren't black, African American, Asian, you know, Caucasian, you know, we weren't, all these divisions that you see today, you know, with all, and then, you know, Republican versus Democrat, we were all Americans.
Right, and we all lived in
And-
the same country, we
yeah.
had the same goals.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that we can remember today and take from today is that we still are all Americans.
True, yes.
And with all the division that's going on, so I'm hoping part of the message today would be, that we are still Americans at this point, and to remember that, and with all of the political stuff that's going on, set that all aside, and you have to remember, what happened, and like what you said, you have to be thankful for every day that you have.
Right.
And you never know. And I know, in the last 2 years, there's been an increase in terrorism across Western nations. And I'm not going to get into the politics of it today,
Yeah, there's tons of it.
which I'm going to leave that all aside today, and that would be for a future show. But yeah, it really hit base with me. And I think this show is going to be pretty emotional for a lot of people. I want to spend a couple minutes here that I had my little niece that came in from Florida. She's not little anymore. She's 31.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She's still little to me.
Well, yeah.
My little niece.
Uh-huh.
And she had her boyfriend that came in from Wisconsin. And we went out to dinner, and we're getting to know each other quite a bit, and heck of a nice guy.
Very nice.
From Wisconsin, and he was originally from New York, and he was from Brooklyn. So of course I razzed him. He's been in Wisconsin for almost 25, 30 years.
Oh,
So I, of course, called him a cheesehead.
well,
And he adamantly defended himself that he was from Brooklyn and a New Yorker. And I said, yeah, most New Yorkers would say that you're no longer a New Yorker.
right.
So, but then, he really felt at ease, and it could have been the martini, the Maker's martini that he had, but he really relaxed. And this was the first time I met him, and so he was able to relax. And you know what he talked about? He talked about, it was 2 days after 9/11, he drove out to New York.
Oh, wow.
He was, I would call, a first responder after the attack.
Okay.
And he was there with the cleanup
Wow.
for a week.
Wow.
Yeah, and he got into ground zero.
Oh.
And I'm gonna ask him to see if he wants to do an interview. I think he's comfortable enough that he will.
Cool.
But he was telling me some of the details, and we were sitting at the dinner table, and he started crying.
Wow.
And he started describing some of the scene of what happened.
Sure.
And he said out of nowhere you'd see debris and then body parts
Wow.
everywhere, and just you could see faint things of it, and then personal effects.
Oh, wow.
And it's been 15 years for him.
So he was
And-
about 16, 17?
No, he's 40.
Oh, he's
So I think
40
it was
now,
in
so
his
he's
20s.
20s.
Yeah, like
Okay.
about maybe 25.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And he felt the duty to go out there and help.
That's
And-
amazing.
Yeah, and so I think I got to get his permission a little bit further to do an interview, but I think that'd be a well-deserved interview to hear what Ground Zero was like,
Sure, sure.
and days after, and so I'll try to make that happen. And but Peggy, after talking to him, he just tears started streaming out of his eyes. I mean, it was
I'm
it was
sure
pretty
it was
amazing.
indelible things that he saw that,
Yeah.
any tragedy like that, I think brings about those feelings. I know when my dad was alive, he was a World War II veteran, and his group that he was with, I'm not sure how you refer to them in the Army, but, the troop or whatever they were, his group was the first one to get into either Buchenwald or Auschwitz when it was first
Oh man.
liberated.
Yeah.
He never talked about it, he never,
Yeah.
but once in a while, something would stir him, and he wouldn't get emotional, but he'd get teary-eyed a little bit.
Right.
And just a thought or something about it,
Yeah.
and he used to say it's indelible memories that no one should ever see or experience,
Yeah.
And if you do, you never talk about them. So,
Right.
you know, you're lucky you got this young man to open up and talk about it, because
Yeah.
it's highly unusual.
And, you know, another thing coming out of 9/11 is you got to put your own self, almost put yourself aside and worry about the greater picture.
Of course, great,
And-
greater good, yeah,
Yeah, and every 9/11 I remember that.
yes,
And,
yes.
you know, my anniversary, you know, being on 9/11, you know, I always joke, I now remember my anniversary. I have to crack that joke because
Well, of course, yes.
it's a bad joke, but
But you know what, we need a little levity in
yeah.
the situation, because it is just so serious and
Yeah.
so just, it just takes your breath away. You can't believe how horrible certain groups are to other groups, and in the meantime, sweeping away
Right.
innocent people.
right, you know, and one of the things too that I find important is a lot of people don't want to talk. You just brought up another huge point that was on my mind.
Sure.
That people don't want to talk about this.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
they want to spend a couple of seconds and then forget it.
Well, right.
And you know, I understand that mentality, and it's kind of a self-defense mechanism that people have, and they kind of want to. It's almost an anniversary of someone that passed away,
Right,
and
right.
you know, spend a couple of minutes on that, but you can't forget. And I know, you know, I think about. I don't think about it constantly, but I think about the attacks that are going on now, and being able to talk about such things.
Yes.
And I think it's important that we continue this dialogue and not forget.
Oh, right.
And I think it's important. And we have the first generation of
Yes.
15-year-olds that weren't alive when this
That's-
happened, and they were
yes.
talking this last week in media.
It's history.
It is history for
Yeah.
a 15-year-old.
Yeah, yeah.
Which, you know, to us is it's probably like the JFK thing. you know,
Right,
after
right.
I wasn't around when that happened.
Right, I
but,
wasn't either. But my brother was, my older brother.
Yeah. How old was he?
He was 3, actually. Actually, my older brother has the same birth date as John F. Kennedy Jr.
Oh, no kidding.
No kidding. So they were celebrating John F. Kennedy Jr.'s birthday and then burying his father at the same time.
Oh
And
my God.
it was, my mom used to talk about it, and she was like, we didn't even know what to do.
Yeah.
You know, you tried to celebrate a birthday and then you're burying a president, and it was just such a momentous
Yeah.
experience. They just didn't, you know, so they kind of, when my brother was 3, they kind of skipped his birthday, and not that he would know the difference, but, you know, it was a hard time.
Does he remember anything from that?
I'm not sure. I don't think so, but I could certainly ask him, and we can certainly see if he could be a guest on our show.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
It's just, you know, like today, I know like a lot of sports is going on, and I think they're going to have some moments of silence.
Yes, yes.
With the sports going on, and
And I'm hoping everybody puts their hand on their heart.
yeah, you know, and another thing is I'm hoping too a lot of these players respect
Yes.
the moment of silence, and I
Yes.
think they're going to.
I hope
If
so.
they don't, I think they're going to start a real
Uproar.
a storm
Yes.
that they are going to feel some heat from.
I would
So,
imagine so.
so this next audio, I'm going to play it for a while, and then we'll kind of just talk about it.
Sure.
It's going to be a beautiful day today. Sunshine throughout. Low humidity. Really a splendid September day. The afternoon temperature about 80 degrees. Great weather for the primary election. Tonight, clear and cool on 60 in the
It's begun to sound like some sort of a cliche. But really, September 11th started out like every other day.
1035 KCU, the beat of New York. Good morning. Martell's on your feel-good radio station. We're waking up with Whoopi in less than a half hour from right now, and JoJo too little too late.
Boston.
Listen very carefully. This is Amy Sweeney on flight 11. We've been hijacked. 2 attendants have been stabbed.
Do you have any idea where you're headed?
No. People in coach think it's a routine emergency. We've asked for a doctor, but none's on board.
Can you tell us anything more about the hijackers?
Yes, they have knives and mace. They say they have a bomb.
How are the people who were stabbed?
One flight attendant's okay. I'm not sure. The other may not make it. Oh my God, something's wrong here!
What's happening? Amy, are you still there?
We're in rapid descent. We're all over the place.
Can you look out the window and tell us where you are?
I see water, buildings. We're flying low.
That's for 12:30 when we come back from break.
We're flying way too low. Oh my God,
So,
I think that's the first time I have ever heard that recording. I didn't realize that they let those, was that like a black box recording or something where?
no, I think those
actual
were,
phone calls?
those were clips, and by the way, that audio was from, I think, CNN.
Wow.
I'll have to double check that rule. Yeah, so that audio, I get a lot of the audios from actual videos,
Okay.
and that's when I was helping produce that audio.
Oh.
That's the first time I really concentrated on the sound,
Mm-hmm.
and what did that sound like to you?
Oh, it just chaos.
That was the building falling.
That was awful.
Yeah.
That was just, when she was saying, oh, we're descending rapidly, and then, that.
Yeah, some of those were phone calls that they put, and then there was video footage of the buildings falling.
Wow.
Yeah, and remember the storm, the cloud of debris?
Oh, yes.
That's what that was.
Oh.
Yeah.
God, well, there was something in the paper today, that woman that was in that storm, one of the first people they photographed, a young black woman at the time.
Okay.
She just passed away this past week
All right.
of cancer from, well, they want to say it's from the debris of the
Okay.
building. But,
Sure.
it was just, and you saw a picture of her then, and she was completely covered in dust and debris and stuff like that, and then they showed a picture of her from today, which she looked okay and everything, but she died of cancer.
Wow.
Yes, it was shocking.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these audio, as I was producing the audios over the last couple of days, and even this morning I reviewed them,
Mm-hmm.
and I was sitting there close to a friend of mine, and just like almost teared up.
Sure.
And I just, at the beginning of the show, I choked up
Sure.
a little bit.
Yeah.
I noticed your eyes are
Yeah.
welling up a little.
A little bit. I mean, like I said, when it happened, I was a young punk. Well, I shouldn't say a punk, but I was young and stupid, and I thought, okay, my immediate thoughts went to my children, my family,
Right.
and all of that. And I'm like, I hope everyone's okay, but there's nothing I can do. It was almost,
Right.
it was a feeling of helplessness. You
Right.
couldn't do anything about it. All you could do was watch TV. And
Right.
you know, I watched Katie Couric for the morning, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, what is she saying?
Right.
You know, and the more it went, the more helpless I felt.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everyone felt that way and stuff. So, you know, thinking back, but then I also had to say, wait, yes, we're helpless. However, we have government officials that should be able to help us.
That leads me to my next audio.
Okay,
Thank you, Peggy, for that introduction.
I can read your mind.
Good evening. Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. The victims were in airplanes or in their offices. Secretaries, businessmen and women, military and federal workers, moms and dads, friends and neighbors. Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of terror. The pictures of airplanes flying into buildings, fires burning, huge structures collapsing, have filled us with disbelief, terrible sadness, and a quiet, unyielding anger. These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat. But they have failed. Our country is strong. A great people has been moved to defend a great nation. Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve. America was targeted for attack because we're the brightest beacon for freedom and opportunity in the world, and no one will keep that light from shining. Today, our nation saw evil, the very worst of human nature, and we responded with the best of America, with the daring of our rescue workers, with the caring for strangers and neighbors who came to give blood and help in any way they could. Immediately following the first attack, I implemented our government's emergency response plans. Our military is powerful, and it's prepared. Our emergency teams are working in New York City and Washington, D.C. to help with local rescue efforts. Our first priority is to get help to those who have been injured and to take every precaution to protect our citizens at home and around the world from further attacks. The functions of our government continue without interruption. Federal agencies in Washington, which had to be evacuated today, are reopening for essential personnel tonight and will be open for business tomorrow. Our financial institutions remain strong, and the American economy will be open for business as well. The search is underway for those who are behind these evil acts. I've directed the full resources of our intelligence and law enforcement communities to find those responsible and to bring them to justice. We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them. I appreciate so very much the members of Congress who have joined me in strongly condemning these attacks. And on behalf of the American people, I thank the many world leaders who have called to offer their condolences and assistance. America and our friends and allies join with all those who want peace and security in the world, and we stand together to win the war against terrorism. Tonight I ask for your prayers for all those who grieve, for the children whose worlds have been shattered, for all whose sense of safety and security has been threatened. And I pray they will be comforted by a power greater than any of us, spoken through the ages in Psalm 23. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. This is a day when all Americans from every walk of life unite in our resolve for justice and peace. America has stood down enemies before, and we will do so this time. None of us will ever forget this day, yet we go forward to defend freedom and all that is good and just in our world. Thank you. Good night. And God bless America.
Pretty powerful speech. What do you think?
Yes, it was. It was somber, but it was also a warning to everyone who was involved that we're not going to take this laying down.
Yeah.
You know, here we come, even though you think you've taken some of our great citizens, we're still going to find you, and we're still going to take care of you.
Well, on that thought, we're going to cut the break here and have some sponsors play here, and we'll do some PSAs, and then we'll be back in a couple of minutes here. You've been listening to the Dave Mierswa Show. Welcome back to the Dave Mierswa Show. I hope everyone is having an excellent Sunday, and hopefully you are watching some football and simultaneously listening to the Dave Mierswa Show.
Oh, yes. Oh, God. I'm just saying, I've told all my friends, watch the Bears, maybe. Do listen to the Dave Mierswa Show, and also watch the Cup. Well, tonight the Cubs are on at 7.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes. You can do 2 things at once, folks.
Yep, and the Packer, more importantly than the Bears, are the Packer game.
Well, yeah. I almost am considering becoming a Cheesehead fan because...
Are you a Bears fan?
I am a Bears fan.
Oh,
I
this is
know.
going to be a good radio season. Yeah. My glorious wife, happy anniversary to my wife, by the way,
Happy
who's
anniversary, Karen.
watching the Bears game and listening to my show.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's called multitasking,
yeah,
right?
She's good.
For her, it's called survival.
Yeah.
I've been quoted before, my only listener is my wife.
Oh, well.
So, no, I know, you know what, a lot of people think this is a small little radio station. You'd be amazed number of listeners out there, and I just did a promo for this show, and 450 views on it, my 30-second little ad.
Wow, okay.
So there's probably 4 listeners.
Well, okay, yeah. Well, one of my friends keeps saying, okay, you and Dave and his mother probably listen to the show.
And now she's going to be quizzed and listen, right?
Yeah.
And then so we got 5 listeners.
Okay, this is good.
Yep, and then Chris, who works, volunteers here at WRLR, I'm piping this into all the studios.
Oh, great.
So he's got to listen by default.
There we go.
So we're up to 6.
Okay, I like it a lot.
And
Perfect.
then I know there's also management at WRLR, and they nervously listen in every Sunday at 12 noon.
Oh, I'm sure.
And,
too, if I were them.
Yeah, and so far the FCC has not called me.
Has not closed us down or anything.
Yes, so we're good there. So introduce yourself again for the listeners.
Oh, yes, I'm Peggy Busceni. I am the co-host of the Dave Mierswa Show.
Yep, and Peggy, I'm so glad that you're the co-host.
Me too.
I gotta say, I'm really glad you came on board.
Oh, I'm glad you invited me because really this is quite an experience. I just love it. I think it's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And a lot of people come on once or twice, and it kind of takes
Wimps.
up. See, that's why you're on my show.
I know.
Wimps. So, and other people that were afraid to come on.
Oh well.
I got a long list.
I'm sure.
They're afraid, but while on a serious note, we're doing a 9/11 anniversary, and this show is going to continue next week for another hour for a 9/11 show.
Okay.
And this show, I tell you, we kind of welled up at the beginning of the show, and we kind of talked about where we're at and so forth. Let me play the next audio here, and they kind of give you a flavor where the show's going. I'm kind of doing a remembrance of what happened, and then we'll talk about we'll listen to some of the victims, the families. We're going to talk there. I got some audios on the warehouse, and then the after effect. Many years later, I have an audio clip on the new building, and then there's actually litigation on this.
Yes.
So we'll get to that next week.
Okay.
So stay tuned for next week, and I know you're going to love today's show, all the listeners out there. So you'll have to tune in next Sunday like you do every 12 noon. So put the Bears game on mute,
There you go.
and then just watch the score. And this show ends at 1 o'clock, so then you can turn the volume back up
Exactly.
for the Bears. And I don't even know what the score is.
You know what? I'm not keeping track because I'm kind of nervous about
It's
it.
too stressful.
Well, it is. It's very stressful. Number one, because there are so many players. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's a whole new team.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's like I can't even know who to cheer for because the other one who's left is Cutler, who isn't at the end of his 7-year contract yet.
I think he's got another couple of years.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, interesting.
Yeah, and they can't cut the guy loose because he's like $1 billion contract.
Exactly, and I wish I could get a contract like that and do so much.
Yes,
so
and
much.
I would be your lawyer agent.
Yes, oh yes, sir.
That's a whole new show.
It is.
Keep you out of trouble.
I know. Well,
that's getting to be a full-time job.
well, and really that's why I joined the show too, so I could keep you out of trouble.
Oh, I think that's probably the reality.
Well, yeah.
Keep me out of trouble on the show, or help promote it.
Yes.
Getting back to the seriousness here, let's just listen to the next audio.
Came in like a missile, like a fireball missile across from the New York Harbor side, I guess in the Newark direction. It came in like a spear. It just speared through the building like a fireball. You can see the cut of the incision into the building is sideways. So the plane was slightly on its side, and that's why it made me think maybe it was in distress. But then when it obviously hit, there was almost no doubt that it was intentional. I dropped the phone, and my arms dropped to my side, and I just heard everybody in the office say, "Get out, get out." And that was when I was heading down on 27, just about 27, didn't hear an explosion. All of a sudden, the staircase moved, and a crack in the wall appeared, maybe about 6 or 8 inches. I kept on looking at the numbers coming down the stairwell, 15, 14, counting, and then I actually thought, I can make it. When I got out, I've never seen war up close, but today I have.
I said that's going to go down like the first one, and it came down, and it was just this sound, this rumble, and this mass cloud coming at us. It's intense.
At that point, we decided just to get out of it. People were just going crazy at that point, evacuating.
Everybody go straight. The ambulance is about 100 feet ahead. Clear out of here now. Folks, we are evacuating this part of Manhattan. Get out of here now. Let's go, folks. Let's go. Let's go. Come on.
How are people getting off the island right now?
Right now, they're walking. A lot of people were getting up to the bridges, and they're walking on the.
So, another sober audio.
Yeah, I can't believe that the officials had to actually tell people to evacuate the area. I would think that all the noise and just the whole jet plane hanging out of a building wouldn't make someone say, "Oh, something's wrong, I better get out of here." But it just was weird to hear someone say, "Leave the area, get off the island." It was just amazing. But then again, there was a news show on right after all of this kind of settled down, and there was a woman who was in a bagel shop right in that whole area, and she was considering leaving the store, and I think the owner said, "No, stay in here." And she's like, thank God that the owner said stay, because the building came down and it was such a crush of materials. If she'd have left, she'd have been dead. So,
Oh my God.
yeah, and it was right next to the, or close within the, Twin Towers and stuff, and she's like, my life was saved by this owner of this bagel shop who said, just sit here. And, they kept all the customers in there, and, yes, they were all, they weren't rescued by any means, but they were saved from an immediate and imminent death. It was, you know, and when I heard the story, it's like, wow, huh? It just, and she said it was a cloud of smoke that was so dark you couldn't see through it, you couldn't see anything at all except the debris and dust.
You know, in that last video with George W. Bush was from CNN, and then this last audio was from Kelly Works, just so we give credit there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things that you're talking about is on my on a previous show, I had a good friend of mine who's in security, and I've talked about it before. I've done quite a bit of training, and it's called fight or flight syndrome.
Yes.
And you have a response to a shocking incident where people freeze and or they freeze, panic, or they fight, and that's the scenario. And I think it was just such a shock. And then you got to remember too, people weren't expecting the buildings to collapse.
Oh, exactly.
And I remember too, they were doing live shots and people were coming out just all full of that
Soot.
gray soot.
Yeah.
Black, and it was more like a gray soot.
Yeah.
And
but then they had, just before that happened, or a couple of years before that 9/11 incident occurred, wasn't there there was a bomb in the basement of the...
Yes.
And it was kind of like a test to see how the building would withstand something like that.
Yes.
And then after the incident on 9/11, it was, I think they proved that there were charges throughout the building that when the plane hit the building, that also helped to crumble the building down. So, it was, they had sort of a dress rehearsal 2 years or 3 years prior to that, so
Right.
they could figure out, but yeah, when people were coming out of the building, I don't think it was anticipated that all that soot was gonna be there.
And you mentioned, I got an audio on that I'll probably play next week. That was in 1993, I believe.
Yes.
And there was, I think, Sheikh Mohammed,
Yeah.
or whatever, Sheikh, whatever.
Al-Muhammad, something
Something
like that.
like that, yeah. And there was the group, and they put it was a bomb, I think, in a van.
In a van, yes.
And then went off. And the terrorists that left it, they found like the license plate and some parts of the van that they rented, and they went back, and then the terrorist used his name.
Right.
That's how they caught him.
Yeah, yeah.
And that blew out. It was in the garage. I think it was in the basement on the side. And yeah, so 2 terrorists attack, and again, we're keeping the politics out of this.
Right.
At least for today and next week, and then hopefully we're going to try to rise above the blame game.
Yes.
But
yes.
there's 60 days left in the election here, and but yeah, I just remember that second plane hitting, and I think that day was our second Pearl Harbor.
Yes.
And this is another reason for my show, is I want to document things, and I don't want people to forget.
Right.
And and they become. Here's another thing, Peggy, that I've done a lot of training, with firearms and preparation and stuff like that in case of an accident and stuff like that. And one of the things that you prepare for are, one of these, mass accidents, whether it's flooding or whatever.
Weather.
And I knew people after this day that worked in the Sears Tower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, no names here, but every day that this person went off to work, I worried that a plane was going to hit the
sure.
building.
Oh, yeah.
And, and we control our fear, but one of the things that Americans do, like everyone, and, police officers talk about this, the military talks about it, it's complacency.
Yes.
And, wherever you're at, I did shows on this, so you can go back to my website, Law 540, and, I was alluding to this before. I have a very good friend of mine, Craig Lawrence, who is a private investigator and security expert.
Cool.
And then, so we have done quite extensive training, and we've also done executive protection. Mm-hmm. So there's an awareness that you have that goes with you everywhere.
Sure.
And it's not that you walk around thinking,
you're
you're paralyzed,
yeah.
but you're prepared.
Ready. Yeah.
That, mentally, that if something happens, like on 9/11, you're not gonna freak out.
Right.
And I think that's so invaluable, and I think so many Americans today have become so complacent again.
A little bit apathetic. And they don't mean to, but, they don't always want to address the dire circumstances.
Yeah.
They don't always want to look at the dark side of things.
Yeah.
And, some people even want to be, as bad as it sounds, revisionist historians, where, oh, it didn't happen like that, or no,
Right.
that didn't happen at all, which I would hope doesn't happen.
Like the Holocaust.
Yes.
You brought that up at the beginning of the show, and there are parties out there that actually the deniers.
Yes, yes.
And there are 9/11 deniers.
Oh, sure.
And which is unbelievable.
I know. But like I said, my dad was there.
Yeah.
And he's like, it was there, it happened, and there are people who say it didn't happen, sadly mistaken. So, yeah, stuff like that, we can't become apathetic, we can't become complacent about this kind of stuff. You can't be on guard every minute,
Right.
but you need to be aware.
On the other hand, you can't, be walking around and, almost like a paranoid freak.
Well, right.
And I've met some people like that,
Sure.
and they seem to come out of the woodwork sometimes. And
they love situations like that too, because then that gets to capitalize on their paranoid.
Or the conspiracy crap that comes out on 9/11. And I actually reviewed some audios on that, and it was some stuff about the thermite and all this stuff, and there's I don't know how many videos the planes hit, and so all the conspiracy freaks,
of course.
make your own YouTube video and
I know.
Keep me out of it. Quote me that it happened and try to refute what we're saying here. So we got about 3 to 4 minutes left in the show.
Holy smokes!
Yeah,
wow.
it really flies.
It went quick.
And so 3-4 minutes. So let's kind of review the show today, and then so again, this show gets posted to my website, law540.com, and then it's on YouTube on Dave Mierswa, of course, and then co-host Peggy Busceni. So you can go to YouTube and see both of our pretty faces
yes,
on YouTube. And so and on today's anniversary, really today is also a tribute to the victims. And I think next week, we'll be talking a lot more about the victims.
Yes.
And the families, what they went through.
Yeah, and what they still may be going through.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Oh, God,
yep. And there's active litigation against the country of Saudi Arabia, who threatened to withdraw billions of dollars here in the U.S. And our Congress just passed something here, and so we'll get into that next week.
Yes.
And we will also get into President Obama on, I call it the 9/11 bill.
Yes.
And then we'll also talk about the new building, Freedom Tower.
Yes.
And there's like 3 minutes left. And, you know, I've been out to New York after the attack. I saw the hole in the ground.
Wow.
And I saw the museum out there.
Yeah.
And, you know, we got like 2 minutes that I'll spend on that. And, you know, I consider myself, you know, pretty tough guy.
Uh-huh.
At least that's
your
persona.
Right. That's the facade
And,
you're in,
and I tell you, they had these little cards
yeah.
of notes that were posted from the family members.
Oh, God.
And one of them was from a daughter. And it said, "Daddy, I love you, where are you?"
Oh, wow. Sure.
And I broke down.
I'm sure.
I'm trying not to right now.
Well, right, yeah.
So
Yeah, you gotta kind of keep it together
it
and
rolls
just-
me up right now. And
yeah.
there were hundreds, if not thousands, of these cards on this wall.
Sure.
And then also, this was at the first memorial,
Oh, wow.
not the one that's all museumed out and all that. This is, and then they had debris in there,
Oh,
and it was just amazing. So, so next week we're gonna talk about the survivors, and I got some 911 audios.
oh, wow. Okay.
Yep, yeah, that's gonna be powerful. And then I got an audio on the warehouse where all the debris was put.
Wow.
And yeah, believe it or not, they had acres of debris that they're sifting through
Oh,
for
I'm sure they have to
personal
find
effects.
things, yeah,
And then we'll go over One World Trade Center Freedom Tower,
great.
a description on that, and then we'll talk about the victims suing Saudi Arabia and a little bit of the politics. Then we'll kind of shift back into Trump versus
You know who?
Hillary. So, Peggy, thanks for coming on today.
No problem. I will be here next week and
Awesome.
I'll be there and yeah, forever.
Yeah, awesome. And then, you know, happy anniversary to Karen
Yes.
out there. And then, you know, please, you know, all you listeners and friends out there, take a moment to realize and appreciate today. And if you have children, you know, friendly remind them. You don't need to shock them or anything, but, you know, describe and educate them what 9/11 happened, and then explain to them in a good way what it's about. And just remember, on that day, we came together as Americans.
Exactly.
And I like to leave the show with a positive note.
Yes.
So
yes.
that's it. End of the day, Mierswa show. Peggy Busceni and I will be back next Sunday, 12 noon.
Have a great week, everybody. See you next Sunday.